tough to see, but that's all right. 3, reset, and ready 1, and take off. Hey guys, welcome to the Pinnacle Bank Arena. So right here we have our replay system with a nice little keyboard. It's got some nice little buttons. Next to that, we have our camera switcher with our big monitor so that we can view, preview, program, everything like that. Here's bib. You've heard bib referenced before. This is the replay system on the bottom. We have the Mac Mini sitting in a case right here, and then up here is our power distribution unit. Over here we have Wirecast, so this is scoreboard RCS. We've got the keyboard and the mouse to run Wirecast up here on this screen, and then we have the soundboard to control our announcer's audio. Next to it we have the Canon 605, which we were borrowing from Marcus. So thank you, Marcus. Shout out Marcus. A Lilliput screen on top of it. Next to it is our XA45. It does not have Lilliput on it, but we have the Libic Zoom controller. So if you've been watching the Tech and Teaching podcast, the first episode, we talked about the Libic Zoom controller. It's a very nice Zoom controller. Next to that, we have our announcer setup. So they have a confidence monitor so they can see what's going out on air. And then their headsets, and they got plenty of table space to write, take notes, and everything like that. I guess I haven't really introduced myself. I'm Nathan Ladhoff. I'm the school support and production specialist here at Striv, and not on the podcast, but I'm behind the podcast. They call me Hoosier. So what I want to add to the video, you saw me obviously at Pinnacle Bank Arena kind of going through the equipment that we had, the setup that we had, but I kind of want to go through individually and give a little bit more of an explanation. In the moment, I didn't have a whole lot of time to do that, so we're going to do that now. The first place we looked at the replay system. So that is the JVC, I think it's the IKM 4000 machine. It's the Pro HD Studio, so it does replay, but it can also live switch, and it can put over graphics, overlays, logos in the corners, anything you need it to do. It's made to be an all-in-one streaming machine with replay capabilities built into it. So we primarily use it for replay because we use Wirecast, which we'll talk about in a second. And Wirecast is kind of our, it's in layers. That's kind of what we use primarily. The Pro HD Studio during the state tournament was going into the camera switcher. And it was going into input number 4, which we called replay, or sometimes we addressed it with the color red for replay, just in more technical terms. And we had a little overlay so that you knew when we were taking a replay shot. We had a nice little stinger transition to designate, hey, we're showing a replay now. This isn't just switching to another camera. And right next to the replay system, you saw that there was the camera switcher with their nice multi-view screen in front of them. They had the ATEM Mini Pro camera switcher sitting in front of them, and so that's a 4 HDMI input camera switcher with your basic functionality for camera switching. You can do downstream keys, you can do picture-in-picture. None of that we actually used for the broadcast of state basketball. What we did use was we had 3 cameras coming in. We had our main camera, our ISO camera, or some might call it a tight camera. We also had the floor camera. And then obviously our 4th input was replay from HDMI. Now the interesting thing is the JVC Pro HD Studio that we have can only take inputs of 720 at 60 frames per second if we want it in progressive scan, which if you're doing sports, you want progressive scan. So that was one of the issues that we ran into was, hey, our camera switcher can take 1080, but our replay system can only take 720. So we had to do some converting, some scaling, some of that behind the scenes stuff. I have a diagram that kind of explains how we were routing everything. And then obviously we ran the replay system out at 720 P60 back into the ATEM Mini Pro. And so the nice thing about the ATEM Mini Pro is it was able to match all those feeds. So we had our main camera coming in at, I believe it was 720, but our ISO and our floor cameras being split so that they could come in at 1080 to the ATEM. So that was nice. And then obviously replay came in at 720. So the ATEM was able to take all those signals, mash them together, and output a very nice looking stream. And so we use the USB out port. It's a USB-C port on the back of the ATEM, and we run that into our Mac Mini, which is our streaming computer, which I was kind of showing you bib. That's our broadcast in a box. And you have, on the bottom there was mounted the JVC. On top of that was the casing for cap is the nickname that we've given it. Actually, the nickname for the camera switcher is Coulson. So some Avengers themed stuff going on in our naming system. We also have a computer called Falcon and a computer called Hawkeye. So that's your Avengers theme stuff right there. So we use a Mac Mini. It has the M1 chip in it. That's running Wirecast. So it's streaming we streamed the state basketball tournament to the NFHS network, so that was streaming there. We were recording a local file, so we had something backed up in case, and we had some limited replay capabilities should the need arise to kind of match the clock up and stuff. So we used our replay system and that to kind of provide replay coverage for a last-second shot per NSAA rules. The next thing, obviously, we do all that, and we have our layers set up, and I think maybe a more in-depth video of how we had all of our layers set up is due, but we use Wirecast to run commercials, overlay graphics. We have a frame with some music beforehand so we can roll pre-show, so they can be streaming and we can check on it, and then we can get into our live show. And then the next thing I showed was our main camera. So the day I recorded, it's Boys State weekend, so we were borrowing Marcus's XF605, a Canon camera. That could be its own video on just the functionality and the features of why we use that. And then we use the XA45 as a camera. We had our XA11 there as well, and then we also had a G20. Those were our cameras for the setup. A lot of our operators were students, high school students that do Striv at their schools. So that's always an awesome opportunity to get to meet them and kind of give them the experience of, hey, this is kind of a major broadcast, you know? So they got to see how we professionally do our broadcasts, so that was really, really fun. And then there was an executive producer position, which I didn't really talk about, but we used. So the executive producer is basically in charge of the entire show. So I was the executive producer for some of them. Other people we had Eric executive produced a couple of games. Damon Bennett is on our team. He's on the support team, and he helps us at productions because that's how he started out in high school as well. And so he was executive producer for a lot of them. David Merriweather was also there doing some executive producing. Mitchell from Kearney. So just a few different people that were able to step in and kind of take over that role. Your primary duties as the executive producer were making sure your announcers knew whether they were talking or whether they should take a break, making sure that your camera switcher was switching the cameras. You called the shots was what you did as the executive producer. And then if you're going to tell your announcer, hey, we're going to break, you need to make sure that Wirecast knows, hey, I got to have a commercial ready. And you can kind of help them through that and which ads to roll, especially to fulfill our duties to our advertisers that actually paid us for advertising. So that was critical. And then the other responsibility as the executive producer is just making sure your camera people, it was more directing than executive producing, but it was more of a, hey, this person can talk to everyone and they're in charge of the show, so whatever they say goes. So telling your camera people, hey, I need you to zoom out, I need you to zoom in, I need you to find this, find that. Then telling your camera switcher, your director position at the camera switcher was more of a technical director where they were just pressing buttons. So that was a unique thing. And then obviously the executive producer was the one who could talk to the official should we need a replay. We didn't have any these past couple weeks. Not that that's a good or bad thing. We didn't have any. So we were prepared, and there were some overtime games and some close games that we were like, oh, we could need it, but we were prepared and we did our best, and we relied on our training when it came down to it. So that was fun. But overall, great week of experience, and I hope you enjoy this video and getting to know a little bit more how we produce the state basketball tournament on the NFHS network. But no, it was a fun weekend, fun couple weeks, and great to see students from around the state come in and pull together and do a broadcast. We had a lot of crews that collaborated together and a lot of kids that got some new experiences, so it's great. Thanks for watching this video. If you're interested in learning more about some of the stuff, I mentioned the Tech and Teaching podcast with Zoom controllers. You can click the link that is right here is where I'm going to put it today. So thanks for watching.